This sermon title takes me directly to our principles. Now, our principles, we know, do not represent a creed. Many are proud that we are a creedless faith. We're not tied to an unchanging dogma. And that's why we call our faith the living tradition. Our religious viewpoints are constantly changing in a changing world. No, we don't have a creed. However, we who call ourselves Unitarian Universalists are still bound together intimately and ultimately, as the late great theologian James Luther Adams put it so well. We are bound to that which is intimate, that which is personal and interpersonal. And we are bound together ultimately. We're accountable to each other when we are in community. And the ultimate pushes us to climb that ladder, to go onward and upward, to be prophetic and even radical until we reach beloved community. You can't have one without the other, the intimate and the ultimate. They are a tandem. We cannot have an authentic relationship if there's no accountability. Now, when you look at our 7 principles, you see this connection very clearly. It's subtle, but you can see it. They've been carefully organized to emphasize our interpersonal connection to ourselves and to those in our world. Our 7 principles move us from the inner to the outer, from the internal to the external, and they are structured out to help us understand and to appreciate, as I've mentioned, the intimate and the ultimate. So when you look at our principles, moving from 1 to 7, 2 to 6, 3 to 5, you get a better understanding of the theological tie that binds us. And of course, at the center of our principles is the 4th principle, the essential element in religious liberalism, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Now, the first principle says that we respect the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And then our 7th principle says that we must respect the interdependent web of existence, which we are all a part of. They go together. First, we value our own life and every human life, as we, of course, value and treasure our own life. And then the 7th principle reminds us that when we are in community, we are bound inextricably together. And so as we respect others' humanity, we are also striving to hold sacred the entire interdependent web that gives life to all things, animate and inanimate. 1 and 7, the 2 principles are interconnected and interrelated. And then principle 2 says justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And the 6th principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Again, as we move from 2 to 6, there's that flow that we compassionately seek equality and reciprocity in our human interactions. And if we do that, ultimacy will be manifest, a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Principle 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. This is, again, interpersonal first and then corporate second. It says the individual must be held responsible to his or her spiritual growth. And then in principle 5, he, she must test that spirit or the things they learn in the larger communal context, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process in our congregations and in society at large. You see, in community, there's a democratic process to check, balance, challenge, and prod us. And so we must test our thoughts. We have to have them pass that communal test, lest we run the risk of becoming drunk with the wine of our ego. Or our good can become corrupted or corruptible. Or without the communal testing of the spirits, our thoughts, the I, can begin to dominate the we, and the whole suffers. So when we are in religious community or secular community, We must test the Spirit again and again to make sure it's not becoming devilish. And the gift of the Spirit, as James Luther Adams said so well, is the miracle of unity in diversity. That is the beauty of our faith, unity in diversity. And so we must test that liberal spirit and say, is what we're doing or saying helping or hindering ourselves and the collective? Is it lifting me up? Is it lifting us up? Or is it tearing me and us down? Is it widening our circle of love or shutting it off? Is it challenging us or allowing for the status quo? So principles 3 and 5 remind us that we are not, as John Donne said so well, islands unto ourselves, but we are an entire piece of the continent, a part of the main. So we are sacredly bound. We are spiritually connected as parts of the whole. And with great freedom comes great responsibility. Our individuality, when in community, is subject to the collective. And this is a delicate balance. When it is in right relationship, it protects us all and preserves the love that we have. So this is kind of sort of how our principles have been carefully crafted to remind us of the delicate balance in life that we share as human beings and the responsibility we have when we're in sacred community. You see, when we choose sacred community, we are choosing the collective which nurtures the individual and not the individual who nurtures the collective. And that runs counter to what most of America and the, capitalistic way tells us. And I believe this is why we are out of balance as a nation and as a religion, because the I has forsaken its relationship to the we. But there is one more principle. What holds our 7 principles together, what is at the center is principle number 4. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Principle 4 is the defining element in our faith as religious liberals and as Unitarian Universalists. Principle 4 is asking us to remember to be flexible and lucid and ever evolving in our thoughts. It reminds us that we have free will, oh yes, and the freedom to question our theological underpinnings. It says, that like our universe, which is constantly expanding infinitely, we too must constantly expand and move toward new ideas about God, nature, and reality. It says that as long as humans are here on earth, revelation is not sealed. New religious findings are possible. Or if you're a theist might say that God is still moving and working in our midst. Everything is responsibly up for debate under this principle. And for religious freethinkers, this means everything. Because we're not trapped by cramping dogmas, but a challenge to keep fresh our message by asking those profound existential and ontological questions which keep us in our faith expanding and growing and changing and rearranging and revolving and resolving. But this principle is also paradoxical. We're asked to think deeply and to question what we believe. But sometimes I think we overanalyze, don't we? And we can reason ourselves right out of our religion. Sometimes we reason so well that we settle for less. We might accept that our faith is small and insignificant, or mostly white and unknown. We reason our way into accepting this reality. And I think we religious liberals have missed the mark on what it means to be religiously free. And we've gotten a bit sloppy with our freedom. See, principle 4 says that it's a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And that word responsible denotes ultimacy. That with our great freedom comes immense accountability to not just ourselves, but to others. And that means when we understand who and what we are, we clearly know that we are all bound together as human beings. You know, just think of how many things had to happen for you to get here today. And how many people you didn't know who were involved in getting you here. Dr. King used to use this analogy quite well. You know, the food you ate, the clothes you wore, your shoes, the mode of transportation you took. Many others were involved in getting you to this place today. You didn't know them, but they were involved in getting you here. They're in your network. So when we're in sacred community, I think what is required is an acute sensitivity to the fact that, as Frances Ellen Watkins Harper said so well, we're bound together in a single bundle of humanity. Every day we must think about those principles and realize that there's something that we can do more of to help bring humanity together. It's not okay that our universal principles normally speak to a mostly white crowd. That's not okay. It's not okay that we're a small player on the world stage. But I think we've reasoned ourselves into this reality. We've questioned our stuff so much that we've almost made our faith null and void. And I think we've stripped our religion down so much without repainting the walls with new meaning, taking spirit out so much that we don't know what it means to be accountable. And in our wonderful quest for freedom and individuality, and in our desire to stretch our limits, we've lost some of our vital nutrients. We run from ritual and religious language. Once we learned, that it was mythically constructed, we tossed it aside instead of redefining the myths with new and fresh meanings for this generation. But the biggest vital nutrient for me is that we lost our willingness to compete, our desire to compete for the mind of America. Somehow many UUs and religious liberals in general have stopped believing that we have a salvific message, and we've given our power over to groups who continue to preach division and hate, my way or the highway. And I don't know about you, but I want to compete. I want to challenge those other faiths for the mind of America. Our message is just as potent. I want as many people to know about a faith that saved my life. A religion that told me I was okay just the way I was, a work in progress. A religion that challenges me with ethical and moral principles which embrace the essence and the teachings of all the sages. However, I think my friend Paula Cole Jones is right. She says we are becoming more and more relevant to fewer and fewer people. And that bothers me, because I know what we were in the 18th and 19th centuries and how we shaped the very mind of America. But I think we've lost our prophetic edge. Here we are, this great faith with very little growth. Here we are, the free church, less than 10% racial diversity in this new age of multiculturalism. My friends, this is our time, I do believe. However, Josh, that does not mean that the time will be ours, unless we get really serious about doing the hard work necessary to transform this religion. The cheese has been moved. And we got to go find it again. See, I was immensely changed after the election of our president. All of us were. But I learned something significant. The Obama campaign showed me something. That if you have, a clear vision and a message and a clear goal that is communicated in a simple but effective way, and several $1 million too, but don't worry about that. A clear message communicated in an effective way. People from all races and religions and creeds will listen, they will support it enthusiastically, and they don't care what brand you put on it. So what we need to do as a faith is to get more competitive, to become a squeaky wheel that needs the oil. We have to get more modernized, more multicultural, more mobile, so that our message can transform into something fresh and real. And then we will be living in the true spirit of religious liberalism. And so, my friends, to do transformative work, to transform religious liberalism, to transform our faith, we have to have religious clarity of the intimate and the ultimate, which opens us to spirit, opens us to that amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. Opens us to believe that we can fly, that we can touch the sky and move great mountains together. We have a message, my friends. We just have to be willing to compete and to find those who are hungry for our food. And so ultimately, transforming liberalism means that we discover or rediscover what it means to be a part of the free church. It doesn't mean we get a free lunch ticket. It doesn't mean we can believe and say what we want. It means we are accountable for our actions and that we are tied together as human beings. And so as I close, transforming liberalism asks that we build a new way, that we not settle for less. Our principles remind us that the status quo is just not good enough. Getting by will not do. Marginal is not acceptable. We have to maximize the minimum and not minimize the maximum. And we have to believe in the quest for excellence, spiritual excellence. And that's what I expect from my children. I have 3 children. Do your best. Manifest your greatness in life, excellence. Why should we expect anything less from ourselves? And so let us keep pressing on toward that mark so that we can become more and more relevant to more and more people. For anything short of this, my brothers and my sisters, in the words of James Luther Adams, is sham spirituality and spurious piety. Amen. Amen.